So we mentioned string array can contain objects, and one of the first example we think about object is of course is string. An array of string object can be created like this, just the same way as we create a primitive data array like an integer array. The names variable holds the address to the array, and each element of the array holds the address of a string. So it's an array of addresses, of string addresses, and the array itself is another variable. Here, each element 0, element 1, element 2, element 3, each holds an address pointing to an array, pointing to a string. Then the names variable itself contains the address to the array. So this array of address, and the array of address is stored in a variable of address. And if we did not provide a initialization list like what we did here, this is initialization list. If we didn't do that, we will need to use a new keyword. But here, once you use a new keyword, everything is created, the addresses are created as null. For this reason, you will need to initialize each and every element. Usually, of course, you will not do it element by element. You will do it with a for loop pointing to some resource. And the most common resource is a file. You will read one by one. You will line by line. String objects have several methods, like a to uppercase compared to, we all know these, right? Each element of a string array itself is a string object like this. Name 3 or name 0, each one is a variable containing a string address. So each element can utilize this method by themselves. Method can be used by using the array name and index as subscript, just like what we have done before. And we mentioned this before, but array has a field called length. And because it's a length, you don't have parentheses afterwards. A string has a method called length. Because it's a method, you need to use parentheses. Of course, this is not an easy task to remember, and it's difficult to switch, given that both array and the string are used widely. But I would say this is probably just because whoever designed these two, whoever the two persons or two teams, they didn't communicate well. So the result is that you have to remember that by heart. And when we talk about array of object in general, it's the same as what we have done with string array before. You will need to create a new array if you don't provide an initialization list, like here. And this accounts is going to this variable is going to pointing to an array address, or pointing to an array object, which contains the address of an array. Each element inside will become null once you finish creating this new, using this new keyword to creating a new array. And then you need to initialize one by one, usually using a for loop. How do you create this new count? It depends on your specific object. So here, after you run this loop for 5 times, your 5 elements are all populated. Each element pointing to an object containing the address of the object. And the bank account, the accounts variable, now is pointing to an array object, which contains a list of bank account objects. That's the array of objects. And when you use accounts with subscript and index, you are basically doing the same thing. You will operate on that the same way as you would on a regular variable.